No, that's not it. That's not it. It's one of the fun themes. That is the theme. I just can't sing it right now. X-Men 2, X2 United.
X2 X-Men United.
X2 X-Men United, X-Men X2
Okay.
X2 United.
This is a movie that, oh man, it's such a banger. Still, I think like there has not been a proper X-Men movie made that I think definitively unseats this.
In some ways, still the best movie they've ever made.
Yeah.
Now, you may have a preference towards Logan or Days of Future Past, or most recently, Deadpool and Wolverine.
Right.
That may be your preference. You can't argue with someone who thinks that X2 is the best X-Men film ever created. And here's the thing. I didn't know that. So on the full-length episode, I had no idea that was the case. I was not just pleasantly surprised, like we talk about with X-Men 1. I was like blown away. Like there were one or two sequences that I thought were a little bit cheesy. That is literally it. In a movie that was made over 2 decades ago.
Man.
And it's pretty spectacular, even from the villain development, from Wolverine as a character, but then also getting to see a glimpse of kind of like our first team up film, really.
Yeah.
The first one is they're separated.
Yeah.
It's not as much. This is like to see the whole team kind of operating and then to have the bold swing of losing Jean at the end. There are a lot of things that really work well, including Scott Summers and Logan's reaction to losing Jean. Just a lot of moments I remember from this movie and this episode being really special and surprisingly good.
I think really like my only con here from a fan perspective is that we don't get more Cyclops specifically. Because I don't know, I think people sleep on the James Marsden Cyclops, and for whatever reason, like I don't know if it was almost like, now we've had X-Men 97 and Cyclops is so at the front and center. He was certainly the same way of the original animated series that had only ended a couple years before the first X-Men film. And so maybe it was just like, people knew Wolverine was still really the hot star of the X-Men and that Cyclops was kind of boring and they didn't know what to do with him. But that's my only thing here. Whenever he is around, I like it a lot. I like he and Jean's dynamic here. I think that works well.
No doubt. In general, he's an underutilized character throughout, really.
Yeah.
Because in multiple films, he's either taken off the board for some reason, or he's just not a huge part of the story.
Which is so weird because his powers are so fun to visualize. Like it's like a character that, like, especially in PG-13 movies, right? Like you can only do so much with Wolverine while like staying within those parameters. But Cyclops, like just shooting out a massive red beam of light is pretty fun no matter what. And you're not like, you can just see someone like fly off of a ledge or something.
In a lot of ways, I also think that X2 is kind of the height of the mutants are discriminated against storyline, plotline. Like here's where it does it about as well as they've ever done it in something.
Yeah.
And so if that kind of civil rights type movement thing is what you want from the X-Men, I feel like here's where you get it.
Yeah. And it does it in such a believable way. Like I think what I love about this movie and the reason why it still sits at the top for me is it's like Days of Future Past is doing something really similar, even down to, like, I know that Stryker is in that movie as a character, but I think really Peter Dinklage's Trask character is very similar to Stryker. He's like making pitches to the president. Sure. He's like, this is a bigger threat than you realize. But there it's like the answer is to build these super crazy mutant hunting robots, which is fun, and as like an X-Men comics fan, something that we had to get at some point, and it was done really well.
Have to do the Sentinels. I
love that in X2, they don't even have to go there. It's just like, you kind of see what this like Bush era American government, like as we were kind of getting the big push with like the NSA and like the security state, like they're working that in, and it kind of feels weirdly grounded. Like, it's like, okay, obviously mutants don't exist, but if they did, this probably is the debate that would be had. And this is the kind of like under the table stuff that would be going on where the president's like, I'm not officially sanctioning this, but like we kind of have to do something. Like it feels almost like a political thriller, but it's an X-Men movie.
A lot of people love origin stories, and we do too. but in general on Friends from Work, we tend to lean toward some of the golden era, the golden ages of all these different comic book characters. And I personally really like a good team up film.
Yeah.
And so there's another aspect to X2 that's really refreshing, which is just seeing the team operate in the way it probably should be operating is just fun in general for us.
Yeah.
Like this movie has all of that in spades, I think. And that's part of the reason why I think I was so surprised.
Yeah. Well, and it's like, man, just the timing of this, and you look at like Spider-Man 2. Well, this kicked it off, I guess, because this was like 2003, and then 2004 we had Spider-Man 2. During that same period, we had like the Lord of the Rings trilogy concluding. Like it was just, we were getting for like movies that are kind of nerd adjacent, but really cut into the mainstream.
Sure.
Like that was, something was going on.
Something in the water.
But if nothing else, this movie for me, the Nightcrawler opening scene.
Yes.
And the Logan jumping off the balcony of the X Mansion and the wife beater just going to town on the soldiers.
Hey. I'll take Logan and a wife beater just going to town.
Always.
Anytime.
Always. There's something about that shot of the claws down into the guy's foot that's so not special, but like hits this weird, like it's like a dopamine hit for me. I'm like, yeah, you get him.
I think there's a little bit of that once you see Deadpool 2 and Deadpool and Wolverine, you almost become desensitized to the violence. So in that moment when we hadn't really seen stuff like that, it was so cool to see a Wolverine like just grunt and then knives through people's bodies. That was a new thing. Whereas once you do it a million times, it's tough to really have it be as impactful.
Well, and
I don't even say it in a bad way for Deadpool and Wolverine.
No.
I'm just saying that's part of the reason I think that stands out.
But I do think one thing about this movie in general and about that scene that makes it so special is it's the fact that Logan, even as he's like still kind of in drifter mode, like he's babysitting, I think is the whole premise of the movie. And he's like not planning to stay with the X-Men, but there's this like protective, like animalistic thing that comes out in him where it's like, I think it's important to me that he is doing what he's doing because he's protecting these kids from soldiers, which just feels like it's very different than the Wolverine violence that we get in Deadpool and Wolverine, right? Where it's like the point is the violence.
No doubt.
And so I don't know. It's like that is still the core of the character and something that we don't even fully get in like Days of Future Past.
So right now on YouTube, on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, wherever you get your podcast, you can listen to us for over an hour, essentially be incredibly surprised at how well this movie ages. And so if you want to check that out, check out Friends from Work, wherever you get your pods, and check out our X2 X-Men United podcast episode right now.